Today, Globe and Mail columnist Marsha Lederman released a new book. Now, the last time that she joined us here in studio was to discuss her memoir, Kiss the Red Stairs, that delved into her parents' Holocaust stories and her own experience with intergenerational trauma. Her new book is about the Israel-Hamas war, and it's called October 7th, Searching for the Humanitarian Middle. And it draws from her Globe and Mail columns over the span of the year that followed the initial attack. Marsha Lederman is back with us today. Marsha, hello. It's so good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Gloria.
So the columns have been published in the past in the Globe. How are you feeling about putting them out there as a collection of historical observations like this?
Yeah, the idea behind this project was to offer a contemporaneous look at that first year, what it was like when we were making our way through the beginning of this very dark road that continues, unfortunately. And honestly, I thought by the time this book came out, this war would be over. I didn't think that it would still be ongoing, that we would be here. I assume we're going to talk about a possible ceasefire yet again, where people are being killed every day. I have the Haaretz app on my phone, and again, I think I just read that 58 more Palestinians were killed in the last 24 hours, and on and on and on. I'm not feeling very optimistic about things, but I have to maintain some hope in order to continue to write about it, to think about it, and to make my way through this, as so many people are.
Well, and this particular project, then, you sat down with an editor and said, we'll take that first year of columns.
Yeah, the idea was to take the first year of columns, but to add context. What we've done is add historical context before each one. This is what was happening at the time. It all feels like such a distant memory, but it also feels like it's bringing up so many things that are very much surrounding us today and will continue for some time. So there's that historical piece. I also wrote about what it felt like at the end of that first year, and I wrote about reader reaction to some of the things that I've been publishing, and included a brief history of the Israel-Palestine conflict, which it's very hard to be brief about that, but I felt it was an important thing for people to have some context as they were reading this.
I agree. And you do point out this is not the whole story, but you were trying to just take us back through history and look at how this conflict has evolved. Now, going back to the title, what does it mean to you to search for the humanitarian middle?
Yeah, I think everything, not everything, but so much of what we're hearing about this horrible war is coming from one side or the other. And I like to dismiss that approach. I like to think that anyone who is a human being can look at this as a human story of people being killed by bombs and people who were massacred and some are still hostages 2 years later, and a country in turmoil, and a whole territory, Gaza, in rubble, people's lives completely upended, tens of thousands of people killed in this war. So, you often hear, someone's pro-Palestinian or they're pro-Israel. I think you can be pro-Palestinian and also care about the state of Israel. I think you can want to have a state of Israel, maybe not the one currently, definitely not the one currently as it is being governed, and reject that, terrorists such as Hamas. I know that the CBC doesn't use that term, the Globe doesn't either, but you can be pro-Palestinian and it doesn't mean you're pro-Hamas. I keep hearing that. You can speak out against the actions of the Israeli government and it doesn't make you anti-Semitic. Can we all just have some nuance in this discussion? Can we all bring our heart and humanity into it and say, this is a catastrophe. It has to end. We've got to find our way through it. And to me, the way to find our way through it is through that humanitarian lens, is by going through the middle. And, it hasn't happened yet, but I have to believe that is the way through this.
Well, you have written in the past that you were raised on an idyllic idea of Israel, but you also write, you can love a country and hate what it's doing. So can you tell us more about that and your personal journey here?
Yeah, well, my parents survived the Holocaust. That's what that first book was about. And so to them, Israel was this beacon. It existed when they were in Poland and enslaved by the Nazis. Maybe Israel on the international scale, international state could have somehow saved them. Maybe Israel could have done something. So to them, the birth of that country out of the horrors of the Holocaust was extremely meaningful. And really, they loved that country. And this is what we were taught growing up. We were taught about the birth of a nation in 1948. And when I say we, I mean this is my Hebrew school education. We were taught this as if it was a story with a happy ending. We didn't learn about displaced Palestinians. We didn't hear about militias. We didn't hear about violence. We didn't hear about Palestinians or Arabs losing their homes. We just saw this as a triumphant event. And then, all the armies attacked poor little Israel. And it was much more than what I'd learned. Again, nuance. Again, there are all kinds of complex issues at stake here, and I feel like a lot of that is getting lost. Well, I know a lot of it is getting lost in people shouting at each other on social media. I don't think any of that is helpful.
Well, and some of your columns and some really deep conversations as well involved you going to pro-Palestinian rallies here in Vancouver and other parts of the country as well. What was that like for you? That physically and emotionally to do that, to be there, to hear them, to engage with them.
To be honest, I was nervous before I went. I only went to one that I wrote about. I was nervous. It was a beautiful gathering. It was very peaceful. The people who came out believed desperately in a peaceful solution. There were some things I heard that made me uncomfortable, for sure. This was very early on. This was the fall of 2023. But it was actually, I'm really glad that I went, because it did open my eyes in a way to the absolute grief that people were wearing on their sleeves. And I got to talk to people about their stories, their families' displacements. We're talking about people who have roots in Palestine. And it was a really important thing for me to do. And it was not anything that was violent or upsetting or aggressive. That didn't exist, not at that rally that I attended.
Well, and as you just pointed out, there's a lot of people yelling at each other right now. And we hear from BC's Human Rights Commissioner as well that anti-Semitism is on the rise, Islamophobia is on the rise as well. How are you seeing this international story playing out here in Vancouver?
Oh, 100% anti-Semitism has reached levels I never would have expected to witness or experience in my life. It has been shocking to me. You can look at the statistics, which I don't have in front of me, but the Jewish groups and Jewish institutions have been targeted in a way that far exceeds our proportion of the population. you have to. I almost would like to say that I've become used to it, but I don't want to become used to it. I don't ever want to think that this is okay. What's been interesting is not just the anti-Semitism that has arisen very quickly, telling me that it was quite close to the surface, but the denial of that anti-Semitism, that it's which feels a lot like gaslighting, and that has been really hard to take. That's felt like a real betrayal for me.
Well, and you pointed out off the top that in this book as well, you share what it was like being what it's like being a columnist. I mean, in the past and currently as well, you write about the strong and sometimes scathing reactions from readers as well. You're a lightning rod for their anger and for their grief. What's that been like for you?
You know, it's compared to what other people in the world are experiencing, it's obviously nothing. And I understand that people are coming to me, people who are angry and upset and feel powerless. I'm also angry and upset, and I feel powerless. But I do have a little bit of a platform where I can write about what I feel are injustices, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. That's why I continue to do it. However, I think that there has been in the last, I don't know if it's COVID, if it's the Trump era, I'm not sure what exactly is the reason for people's rudeness does not feel like the right word. It's not nearly a strong enough word, but for people to just feel like they can unleash on you and write the most, really some awful things. And like I say, it's fine. I'm safe. It's okay. But it remains a little bit shocking to me.
You know, you mentioned off the top, there seems to be some movement in this conflict. There have been some of the largest anti-Netanyahu rallies in Israel just in this past week. The people's patience is done. They're done. They're angry. They're tired. They want this to end. Today, the news that Hamas has agreed to a proposed ceasefire, that Israel is reviewing the response. But as you pointed out, we've been at this point before. And it's interesting, at the opening of your book, you write, "I don't know how we come back from this or where we go." How does that phrase land with you now?
I really thought we'd have a better idea of where we were going by this point when I wrote those words. I did not think that Gazans would be still being killed daily, that the Israeli army would still be calling up reservists and sending in soldiers and not allowing aid in, or, you know, I won't get into that, but I did not expect that we'd be at a point where we were seeing children starving in Gaza. I don't know how you come back from that. I see hate entrenched now in a way that it wasn't even 2 years ago. That's really scary to me. Israel is not its government. Many Israelis do not want this. We saw 300,000 of them on the streets last weekend. They want this war to end. They don't want to be sending their sons into battle. They don't want to be part of what they have a huge moral issue with, many of them. They want it to end. Gaza needs it to end. The world needs this to end. I don't know how it's going to end. I'm not sure if the ceasefire is going to do it, because Netanyahu has previously said he will only agree to a deal that allows for the release of all the hostages, and that is not, as I understand it, what's currently on the table. They're talking about releasing half of the hostages. But there's a lot of pressure on him to agree to a deal, and let's hope that that happens. Because every day this continues, more people are dying.
Marcia, thank you so much for being here. And I know you will be writing about this more. This, again, just covers the first year, and this conflict is ongoing.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It's a really hard one to have. People are so emotional, even me, maybe especially me, but we have to talk to each other. We're not going to get through this by yelling at each other only.
You take good care, okay?
Okay.
That's Marsha Lederman, Globe and Mail columnist and the author of the new book, October 7th, Searching for the Humanitarian Middle, and it was released today by Penguin Random House.